Hey, this is Mike. I'm going to give a quick demonstration on how to do the shading of the green. So in Photoshop, there's this thing called feathering. So that's what we're going to be using here. So I have my three layers all stacked up. So the JPEG's on the bottom, the lie layer second, the slope third. So for demonstration purposes, I've already sloped the green. Looking at the slope color, so you can see that I have this section is sloped with the value of 2, and this value is also 2, and then this brighter color is 3. So the way I do this is I typically slope or I shade most of the green anytime it differs from what the underlying green value is. So any value that's unshaded, we use the green the green direction and green speed value in the whole file to control that. So in the whole file, I believe that is let me bring up. So that's going to be like line 32 of the whole file controls the general direction of the green. So when I set line 32, I'm going to say go in whatever direction. So everything that's not colored on the green will flow in that direction. So in this case, like I'll usually start from like lightest to darkest. So and the other thing that I do is the the part of the green that is, I think of it this way. So like if the green is flat, or let me put it this way. So if I look at this, the way that this is colored, I see three different tiers. So you have your main body of the green, right? And then there's this section that, due to this color, is flowing into the main body. So what that means in a three-dimensional space would be that this part is higher, right? So this part of the green is higher, therefore it is sloping into the main body of the green. And now this section is also going this direction. So for me, this is sloping away from the main body of the green. So you have your tier 1, your tier 2, which is most of the green, and then your tier 3, which is starting to slope away towards the fairway. And the difference is in here you have this is which is a fairly mild slope, and then it starts getting a little bit more severe towards the edge. So what we do is this in select, you'll see this thing called feather. But what we have to do is we basically need to create a duplicate of our, so this is the whole image, right? This is, and make sure you always create a backup, right? So I use Photoshop, so you can use duplicate layer, and I'm just going to call this original, okay? And I'm going to make this invisible, so I basically am just saving a copy in case I screw anything up. But from here I can also say, okay, well, now I want to create something called lighter. And what lighter is going to be is lighter is going to be basically the higher section of the green. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go back to my slope layer, and I'm going to use my magic wand. So in magic wand I have tolerance 0, anti-alias is unchecked, and contiguous is checked. And I'm going to click on this section. So now this whole section is selected. And now, well, actually, let me go backwards. So when I created this, you can see that this layer and this layer are exactly the same. But let's consider, let's say if I made this layer a lighter, slightly lighter color, so I'm going to brighten it. So I go into Image, Adjustments, Brightness. And since this is a value of, this is a slope value of 2, I'm going to say, okay, let's say brightness 6. So now you'll see that when I switch from this layer, which is selected, to this layer, you see it gets much brighter. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to go back here, and I'm selecting the higher level of the green that I want to shade. I go back to my basic master layer. We'll just call this the master layer. And now I'm going to go into select feather. And now from here you get this feather radius. So what this means is the higher the value, the more it's not quite blurring, it's a gradual fade from the one layer to the other. So for instance, if I set this to, let's say, we'll just use 5 for example. So I said okay. So all this did was it just applied layer. Now in order to actually see what I'm doing here on this, while this is still selected, so I've already did my feathering, and now I'm just going to hit the delete button. So what just happened here? So now you can see that it applied. See how it's like a faded thing? So now this selection is like slightly faded. So you may say, oh no, what happened? I just deleted part of my image. Okay, well that's okay, because now when I make this visible, you'll see that, oh well, okay, so now this section is slightly brighter. And to make this more illustrative, if I change this adjustments brightness, and let's say I bumped up the brightness even more, watch as I do this, you can see how the image changes, right? And it has this nice gradual distinction between the two different things. So typically for like, not for like a value of 2, I'll do like a feathering of like, let's say 5, but the brightness level of 6. So I get this like slight, actually let me go back. So I get this slight difference in how it looks. And then you just would do layer, merge visible, because I only have these 2 layers selected. So now I'm going to merge it into this master layer again. Okay, does that make sense? So now let's go back to here. So now I want to do the same, but with these 2 darker layers, because again, if I look at this, I'm basically saying, okay, this is a higher section, and then most of the green will look like this just regular color as it is in the image, and then I want to make this a slightly darker, and then this even more darker. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my original layer, and I'm just going to do duplicate layer, and I'm going to call this darker. Okay, and now from here I'm going to select these, because I'm going to start with the lesser shading first. So again, master layer, I'm going to do select feather, value 5 is okay again, and then so feather is applied, and now I'm going to hit delete again. Okay, so it looks like nothing happened because I actually have to make this darker layer a little bit darker. So now instead of doing a positive value of 5 or of 6, I'm going to say let's make this a negative value of 6. So you can see as I did that, this section got darker. And again, you can see it if I make only this top layer, you can see which part was removed. And if I do this, you can see the difference. So again, so this is just slightly darker now. So now I'm going to merge back to my original layer. And now I'm going to do it one more time, because now I want to do this section and this section together. So these I'm going to make a little bit even more darker. So I'm going to go to original, duplicate, darker again, except now before I actually apply it, I'm going to go, while I have this layer selected, I'm going to go into images, adjustments, brightness, and I'm going to say, since it's a 3 level sloping, I'm going to call this -9 for brightness. Okay, so now I'll go back to here. I'm going to select the 2 areas that I want to feather. While on my master layer, I now do select feather, and now I want while earlier there was a little bit more of a gradual shading, now I want the distinction to be a little bit sharper between the 2 colors. So instead of 5, I'm going to use feather radius 3. and now I'm going to hit delete again. Okay, so now you can see that this section's even darker. So maybe this isn't dark enough for you. So while I have this darker layer selected, I could just go in and I can change image, adjustments, brightness, color, and I'm just going to make this a negative value until I get the kind of shading that I want. Now typically this for me is like too much. I try to be pretty gradual in how I display things, and certainly for like if I'm using like level 4, then I'll make it fairly dark, and the rule is only for level 4 or 5 of color sloping do you apply the arrow. So another example, so let's say actually let's undo this. So I'm just going to undo this. So let's say for example this was actually sloped 4, right? So I'm going to select level 4 and I'm going to change this to 4. So let's pretend that these are sloped 4. So now I want to do the same thing but make it even darker. So now I'm going to say, okay, make this another darker layer. And now I'm going to say make the darker layer 15 shades darker. Okay. So now I go back here, select my 2 areas, and in Photoshop you can select multiple areas by clicking one and then holding down the shift key and clicking the next one. So now I have both selected. Back on my master layer, I'm going to now do select feather, and now instead of 3 I'm going to say 2. Okay, and then hit delete. So now you see how this got a little bit darker. Maybe I want it even darker. Again, it's really sort of up to you. You can look at how we've done it in other courses. We try not to get too crazy. Like to me, this is probably okay. Like this to me is too much, but this looks okay. So now if I'm looking at it from far away, you can kind of see, oh, I can see with the naked eye that there's some slope here. But the DKS rule is we now add the arrows to it. So again, I want to merge these 2 layers before I do anything else. And normally you would be like kind of saving after every step. I'm not going to do that because I'm just messing around here. So now the final step is if you want to apply the arrows, right? So I sent you these arrow files. I'll make this big just so you can see what this looks like. So it's just a normal arrow. Now, the thing to remember with these things is that all of these, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So there's 8 arrow directions. And if you look at a circle, it's basically 45 degrees each difference. So this is pointing at 0 on the compass. This is pointing at 45. This is pointing at 90. This is pointing at 135. This is pointing at 180, and so on. So what that means is when we actually do, when we apply the arrows, we want to rotate the arrow by that direction. So in this case, since this direction is pointing here, so this is 45 degrees less than 270. So that would be 225 if I do my math right. So what I want to do is I actually want to rotate. So first I'm going to go into preferences because I don't want you always have to like be careful about the image interpolation when you rotate images or copy images. So in this case you want to use something that's not nearest neighbor. Nearest neighbor is what you use when you're dealing with the lie layer because you don't want any of that anti-aliasing or blurring between pixels to happen. So in this case I'm going to use bicubic smoother just because I've found it looks a little bit better. So now I'm going to rotate canvas, arbitrary, and I'm going to say I want to actually rotate this 45 degrees counterclockwise from the current direction. Okay, so that should put me at 225 since it's pointing directly to the left, which means 270 on the compass minus 45. Okay, So you can see if I zoom in, now the arrow looks like this. So now I'm just going to copy this whole thing and I'm going to paste it in here. So you can see as I paste it in here, you got your nice big arrow. Now, what I normally will do is two things. First, I'll do, while I'm on this arrow layer, I'm going to hit Control and T to select it. And then I'm going to click on this to keep the, maintain the aspect ratio. And I'm going to change the size. So for me, I don't want 100%. I want, let's say, 60%. Okay, that looks a little bit small. So let's say maybe 75%. So now the arrow is 75% of what it was. Click this and now it's there. Okay. For me, this is going to be good enough for this, right? Because this section is also the same sloped direction. So I can just duplicate this arrow and now have this here. Okay. Now, what I was saying, we don't want this to be 100% opacity, right? So opacity is how transparent this object is. So we can easily change this. So while I have this arrow layer selected, I can change this to, let's say, 20%. Okay, and you see what happens. So now the difference is when I remove my sloping, this is what it'll look like in game, in the game, as opposed to something like this, which to me is, this is not the Dave Cook convention. They prefer to have the arrows visible but blended in a way that doesn't detract from the actual green or the image itself. So out of view, it gives you a general idea of the strategy. You could look at this and know, hey, okay, this area that's colored is going to move in this direction. It's a very intuitive thing. And again, we only do that for the severe slopes, because when the ball reaches a severe slope, it will stop. It will continue moving until this color is no longer reached. So for instance, if the ball lands here, it's going to continue rolling until this color stops. So in this case, it would be right at the edge of the bunker. Okay, so that's the general idea. So again, when you have all of this done, you have all of your shading done, and you apply your arrows. So both arrows are at this 20% opacity. I have the three. I'm going to have this layer, this arrow selected, right? So they're visible, visible, and then the master layer visible. And while I have the master layer selected, I'm going to do layer merge visible. So now all of these are merged into a single layer, and this is the one that I would then do save as, and you're going to save, you know, this as whole 11 .jpeg, and this becomes your whole image. So in this case, I would probably save it to, I would save it directly to, you know, C, DKS, DKS Sports Data, Golf, Courses. I don't even know if I have a course file setter for this course yet. Piping Rock, and let's say, so this is hole 11. So it becomes the new hole 11.jpg. So I hope this is illustrative. It's probably more detailed. Again, you can just look up feathering. The idea is, again, you want to have a master layer and then either a lighter layer that you're going to basically use, or a darker layer, and you feather the master layer and then delete the area that you feathered, and then make the underlying darker or lighter image visible, and then merge the two layers, and that's how you get that nice smooth blending between the two different colors. So I hope this was useful. If you have any questions, drop me a line. Thanks. Bye.